Media Network.
Joining us, this is Rispa Abraham with Anchor Network, where we bring you conversations with ordinary people doing extraordinary work in our communities. Today we sit with one amazing lady. We will hear her story, what she does, when she does it, how she does it, and why she does it. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to meet her.
I am Deidra-Ann Leiba-Masese, and I was born in Jamaica, West Indies, and grew up in Brooklyn, New York.
So you are not born in Texas.
No.
How
No.
did you end up in Arlington, Texas, of all places?
So after I went to Oakwood, then I went to Andrews in Michigan, and then I went to Jefferson, Texas, where I was the girls' dean and Bible teacher. That's how I ended up in the actual state.
And then you came to Alpha International, and
Yes.
now you are the senior pastor at the church.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Did
Came
you?
to Arlington,
Uh,
but when I came, I was the associate for 2 years.
Okay,
So I've been the senior for 10.
for
Whew.
10.
Yes, can't
Seems
believe it.
like yesterday when you
Yes.
did go here.
Yes.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you always want to be a pastor? Was that always your dream?
No. When I went to Oakwood, my goodness, when I went to Oakwood, I started off, my major was biology,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to do pre-med. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be a physician. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that was not God's plan.
Okay.
Yes, so I ended up changing my major to theology after a lot of back and forth with God, a lot of complaining and whining and frustration. I
Okay.
just gave in and I was like, fine, I'll do it.
At what point did you know this is it? This
Yeah.
is the direction I want to go, and
Mhm.
what made you realize?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I joined the choir at Oakwood, and I ended up being the chaplain with one of my friends. And during that time, we would travel to sing different places, and then we would give like a devotion and an appeal. And I remember one of those times I gave an appeal, and like hundreds of people came down to the altar.
Wow.
And I was a biology major, and I'm like, and I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But I remember having this profound sense of being taken over. I was like, what is this feeling? You know? And it was such a unique experience. And I thought, man, and people kept on asking me, what is your major? What is your major? And I'm like, biology. They were like, you're in the wrong major. And I would get so angry because I'm like, you guys are trying to derail my life. You know?
I'm trying to be a doctor here.
Yeah, I'm like,
You
I'm
know?
going to med school. But I think the more people said it, the more people kept on asking me, what's your major? Do you think you're in the wrong major? I had to start praying about it. And I'm like, okay, Lord, help me to reconcile what I'm feeling, this passion, this burden for souls,
Yeah.
and my major. I need to reconcile these two things. And eventually, I said, I have to change my major. But it came after asking God for a lot of signs and wonders. Yeah. Yeah.
So were you like, hey, if this is you, Lord,
Yeah.
let a camel walk through that door?
During the summer times when I was at school,
Mhm.
I would work as a lifeguard at the summer camp in New York. And one time I asked God, I said, if you want me to change my major, I want to see frogs in the vent of this pool, like frogs.
You dared God.
Yes, because that was huge. I had never seen a woman in a pulpit preaching. I had never seen. I'm like, who is a female pastor? Like, what is that? You know? And so I said, God, if you want me to change my major, and I was a junior whisper at Oakwood,
Yeah.
already thousands of dollars in debt. I'm like, this is huge. If you want me to change my major, you're gonna have to give me something like some straight chariot coming from the
Something.
And I woke up the next morning, and there were the frogs. I nearly
Wow.
died. That's how horrifying
Uh-huh.
that experience was to me.
That
I
was-
thought,
yeah.
you are literally asking me to go into something that seems impossible to do as a woman. And then I thought, I'm gonna be single forever. Who's gonna marry a pastor? All this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, thankfully God resolved that. Thankfully God resolved that. But it was really scary,
Yeah.
having to plunge into a world that is so unknown.
And you mentioned now you're in ministry in the
Hmm.
Adventist church,
Yeah.
and you are a woman,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of back and forth around
Hmm.
women pastors in the
Hmm.
Adventist church.
Hmm.
So maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What your experience has been,
Right.
and what are your thoughts on the
Yeah.
subject?
One of my professors at Oakwood, thank God for him, he
Mhm.
told us, he said, this is not your battle to fight.
Uh-huh.
And I really appreciated that because I think it gave me, from that point, the perspective that you have people that you're going to serve. People are going to be getting married. People are having babies. People are sick. People are dying. There's so much more to worry about than this whole ordination issue and things like that. So I think from that time, I had already prepared my mind that this is not a battle that I need to fight. Just focus on the task at hand. Yeah. So, I never really made it an issue. I'm like, with or without the paper, there are people that need me. One of the things that I did not expect is to deal with so much loss. I think the amount of loss that we experience in our community, some of my pastoral friends, they're just like, well, I mean, now they know the word pole. They're like, I'm like, yeah, I'm at someone's home and I'm like, no, I'm at someone's home saying pole. They're like, oh, okay, we're praying for them. But everyone knows that word pole. But that for sure was one of the things that I didn't expect to experience. But I am so grateful for the opportunity to journey with people at such tender times of their lives, and then to add to that pole category, I did not expect to have to bury my parents while at Alpha, right? So, I came to Alpha in 2012. My mother passed away the end of 2014. My father passed away 2020. And so I think with the community and the church's loss was added my own personal loss. So I think just having the experience of having to deal with so much loss was definitely not an expectation for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's maybe the loss of your parents, but one thing I know, you're very much involved in the community in all things. Besides just supporting the church, you're out there in the community. You celebrate with us. You do all kinds of things. You're very supportive of the young people, the children. But I think you're very, very intentional when it comes to loss. Could it be because of the experiences you've had?
Yes, definitely. When I came to Alpha, we just found out that my mother had cancer again. And I think her going through sickness, on and off of sickness, I think it really shaped my perspective of when someone is hurting, you want to be there. Because I remember calling my mother while I'm, going to these mchangos fundraisers and, going to say Pole. And I remember calling her on the way and saying, Mommy, did someone visit you today? Did your pastor call you? Did you hear from anyone? And I remember those times she would say, well, Deidra-Ann, I didn't get any visitor today, or, the pastor came maybe a few weeks ago. And I remember saying, like, oh, man, what's going on with the pastor? What's up with the pastor? But of course, now that I'm in the shoe, I'm like, man, you can't judge. These pastors are busy. But I think having my mother walk through that valley of the shadow of death gave me the perspective that just like you wanted someone to visit your mother and pray with and for her, you wanted someone to give her a ride, you wanted someone to cook food for her when she couldn't do it. Now that is you to Alpha, to the community. Yeah, show up. That really drove me for sure.
Yeah, and showing up you do. Showing up you
I
do.
try.
Sometimes, I have to wonder, you not only have the church, so you have a congregation to worry about. You're a mother to two beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
You're a wife.
Yes. To an amazing man. Praise Jesus. Yeah. Yeah.
But with all that, Superwoman, how do you do it?
I don't know, Whisper. It's the very thing that my mother used to get frustrated about, which is what I realized is just how God wired me. She always felt like I could compartmentalize things. She felt like I had an ability to be less emotional when the opportunity was there for me to be very emotional, and I used to tell her, I don't know why God wired me this way, but I realized he wired me this way to be able to cope with all the things that I have to deal with. You know, I mean, if I was how she thought I should have been wired emotionally, oh man, I don't know. I don't know how I would survive. You know, but my ability to when I'm at church, I'm at church and I'm 100% at church. Yes, when I'm at home, I'm home and I'm 100% there.
And you give a lot of credit to David. How important is it that you have his support and
Yes.
maybe an encouragement to other spouses to be
Yes.
supportive of each other?
I would not be able to do, Whisper, what I do if David was not who he is and if he was not as hands on as he is. There are times when I'm home making dinner, I'm frying those beans, and someone's like, Pastor, come to the hospital immediately. And I am like literally dropping that food, like, I'm like putting my spoon back where I had it, and I'm like, David, I gotta go. And he's like, okay, you know, and you know, he doesn't complain. He's not like, you know, or I'm like, okay, David, you know, I need you to hold down the girls, get them ready for bed. I gotta go do this visit. He's like, okay. And I know the girls are gonna be fed, bathed, and in bed by the time I get home.
Yeah.
You know, but I have to acknowledge just how amazing he is, and not only just for the hands-on support, but for the moral support, the spiritual guidance. I mean, David is extremely wise, and I know that it's because he seeks God. And even while we were dating, he would tell me, like, I remember when Pastor Perkins was leaving, and I said, Pastor Perkins, you cannot leave me here. Like, I need a senior pastor to come and be my pastor. And I remember when I told David, like, David, they're gonna leave me here by myself. He was like, what? But he just, the first thing he told me was just pray for wisdom. I mean, that was the one advice he gave me. He said, just pray for wisdom. And I took it seriously. And I remember really just being intentional through the years for praying for wisdom. And I believe, you know, God has given it. Yeah. So I thank God for him.
Nice. Nice. It's always great to have not only a supportive community, but your little community at home.
Yes.
If you're not working together, then it becomes very, very difficult on how do you juggle all these many hats that you wear.
And that would be the advice that I would give to couples. Even okay, everyone's not a pastoral family,
Right.
but it could be something that that your spouse is pursuing or they love to do. Be supportive. Be supportive. You know, be supportive and tell yourself when they succeed, you succeed. It's a family thing. You know, success I feel is a family experience, and it's a blessing to be able to pour into the person you love.
Anchor Network.
I actually really am glad that I am a licensed professional counselor because I think it adds to what I'm able to do. Because like many pastors, they're not trained professionally to provide therapy or, you know, counseling services. But I love it because I'm like, okay, Alpha, you know, however far I can take you without having to refer you, I can. I don't have to say, okay, whatever you're dealing with, I don't have the experience or the training to cope with. Yes. So I see it as a tremendous resource for Alpha and for the community.
Many people avoid counseling. The other day we actually met briefly, and Miriam said people need to start treating counseling as they do their annual physical.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I loved it. I wanted to steal that quote immediately and put it online. But she's right. If we were to be as intentional as we are about getting our annuals and all these kinds of things, I think we would be far, or let me say further than where we are. It's just like for the marriages, we don't have to wait until the marriage is dealing with some really serious topic in order for us to say, hey, let's get a checkup.
Yeah.
You know, let's, you know, if someone were to say, I know Dr. Becky Opar, she always talks about the heart and the brain. She's like, you know, just like the brain needs of an exam, the heart needs an exam, just so that, you know, you also need a checkup. You know? But I think we've looked at counseling for those suffering with mental illness.
Mental illness.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've thought to ourselves, okay, you have to be severely depressed, or you have to have anxiety, or you have to have bipolar, or you're schizophrenic, these kinds of things. But that's not the case. I have clients who are just like, they're like, Deidra, I just need some guidance on what job to take. I have
Okay.
3 job opportunities and they want to navigate, or some people say, oh, do I take this position here, or do so some of it is just life, and it's not always deep stuff.
So are you saying
Hmm.
everybody
Yeah.
needs counseling?
Oh, yeah. And let me say, I can say everyone can benefit.
Yeah.
Because we go through transitions. Some people come just to. I remember I had a client who wanted to start a business, and they just wanted they just wanted to be able to process what it would be like to start this business. What should they take into consideration? All these kinds of things, and those are fun.
Yeah. Okay.
So okay, maybe not. I wouldn't say everyone needs it, but I could say everyone can benefit, and it's not limited to things that are just wrong.
Okay.
A lot of times things are right.
And like you said, we have different transitions in life,
Yes.
different milestones,
Yes.
different opportunities. So depending on
Yes.
where you are on your journey in life,
Exactly.
then there's always an opportunity to engage a counselor on a particular topic.
Exactly.
But there will be times when there are specific situations where this person definitely needs to speak to someone.
Yes.
How do I know it's time to speak to someone?
Well, one of my first YouTube videos is on who actually needs therapy. And in the part 1, I said, if you've been thinking about it, if it's something that you've kind of toyed with and said, man, do I need to see someone? Maybe I could see someone. This person sees someone. Maybe I could also benefit from seeing someone. If the thought is even on your mind, then it's time. Because for whatever reason, your heart feels like, I need to find someone objective, and I need to find a safe space to process my thoughts and my feelings. And so, yeah, so the first part to that answer would be, if you've been thinking about it, why not?
Okay. Are there other signs, like, do I need to see frogs in a bed?
No. No, you don't need to wait to see frogs in the bed. Before you see the frogs. There are definitely life experiences that make us feel like, what, outside of my amazing friends, all these kinds of things, sometimes you do need a professionally trained person to walk alongside you, because of course we have different modalities of therapy that, okay, if someone has, let's say, they're dealing with, not even something so deep, they're getting married, something like that. There may be different assessments that we have access to. There are different approaches, that we have to dealing with, okay, how do you navigate getting married and that transition? What does that require? Because that also makes me go into your childhood, their childhood. How does that work? Temperaments, personalities, that kind of thing. So those are some other opportunities. So I think, yeah, if you could be getting married, you could have lost a loved one, you could be having a child, transitioning to parenthood, is definitely something that sometimes requires an additional person after you become a parent, especially women. Sometimes we deal with postpartum depression. And so those are times when you could say, you know what, I'm feeling really low. Let me find someone to talk to.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes you're taking medication for something, but the medication itself is not the whole picture.
Okay.
Sometimes you can say, okay, yeah, I am suffering from anxiety or depression. I'm taking this medication, but let me talk through maybe some of the events or the feelings that I have that that weigh me down or that make me really anxious.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. As a friend, how do I help, or as a family member, how can I help somebody within my circle? Maybe I can clearly see they do need to speak to someone, but they don't want to, or they are not taking that step. What advice would you give to someone? Here are some things that you can say, or steps you can take to help someone get closer to that division of, I need to engage a counselor.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I think one of the first things would be to make sure that the person knows that it's okay. I think sometimes as friends we can see that a friend needs to talk to someone, but we don't want to go to them like, girl, you got issues. or or if it's a man, it's like, man, dude, you have issues. Like, you need to go see someone. I mean, if it comes with that kind of vibe,
Yeah,
if
no,
it comes with,
it's not
now it's
happening.
like, now I feel like, well, I am like severely broken and damaged, and like, you it's almost like you're looking down at me, like you're so destroyed that you need to go sit on someone's couch. If you say it like that, now it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
But if you say, you know what,
Uh-huh.
I love you to pieces, love you to the moon and back.
Mhm.
I want to see you be the best version of yourself. I see how these situations are really weighing you down. How about finding someone that can talk, that you can speak to? It's a confidential space. It's, what would you think about that?
Okay.
So that the person doesn't feel, I don't know if I should say judge. I don't think judge is the word, but they don't feel that something is so wrong with them that they need, I don't know how, I'm trying to think of a way. It's like, basically, you don't want it to look like you're standing up here and you're like, you're so sick, go see somebody,
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
better than you. I'm doing better than
Right,
you, or something like
exactly,
that. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
You want it to be more of like, I'm coming next to you,
Yeah.
not I'm standing over you.
Over
Because that's why a lot of
you.
people don't go to counseling. They're just
Yeah.
like, if I go to see someone, that means that something is wrong with me.
Mhm.
But guess what? Sometimes something is wrong with you, and it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Right? So, as a friend, being able to communicate to that friend that, number one,
Uh-huh.
we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We live in a broken world,
Mhm.
and sometimes that the brokenness of society will impact us,
Yeah.
and it will force us to
Mhm.
need to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Earlier you mentioned about if in a marriage you don't have to
Hmm.
wait for the things to start going south before
Yes.
you bring in a counselor.
Hmm.
There are situations where one partner may want
Mm.
to go into counseling
Hmm.
and the other is not.
Hmm.
What would you say to couples on the importance of
Yeah.
seeking counseling together?
Together, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's huge because that happens a lot. Someone's like, I want to come, but my wife refuses, or I want to come, but my
Uh-huh.
husband refuses, and you're like,
Uh-huh.
oh. So at that point, as much as I would encourage the couple to come together,
Mhm.
whoever's willing, I'm like, come.
Mhm.
But the challenge with that, though, Whisper, is
Uh-huh.
that one person is growing at a tremendous rate. They have these evolutions of self.
Mhm.
They have these moments of, they have these IKEA moments now when they're sitting with me or with whoever they're with.
Mhm.
But then the other partner, they're kind of left behind now, because
Behind.
now
Yeah.
this person goes home and they're like, now, unfortunately, it gets to the point where they're like, you know what, I'm not happy in this marriage.
Oh.
So you rather be on the same pace, growing
On the same
together.
growing
Yes,
together.
because now if one person is, their trajectory is like this, their self-esteem has increased, they feel empowered. Oh man.
Mhm.
Now they start looking at this other person like, you're not where I am.
Oh.
And now we're so incompatible,
Yeah.
because where I am now as a person,
Mhm.
I've healed some traumas, I've dealt with some baggage, and now there you are,
You're still
still where
stuck
you are.
in your
Yes,
past.
yes. So I would say, please, couples,
Uh-huh.
if when at all possible, go
Uh-huh.
together.
Go together.
It
Uh-huh.
really does help. And
Mhm.
when you love a person, you
Mhm.
want to be the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
So it's like, what? Yes, therapy may not be something that you would have liked before, but you may say, what, for the sake of this person, for the sake of our marriage, why not?
Why not?
Yeah, it's there's nothing, we don't have to be intimidated by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe this is a question I should have asked earlier, but hey, here we
Yeah.
are. Thing. Is it like, are they all equal? Like doctor, we have a pediatrician,
Yeah.
neurologist.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you look at
Yeah.
counselors,
Yeah.
like, can the same counselor deal with
Hmm.
all issues that people deal with, or
Yeah.
do
Do you have
counselors
specialties?
specialize in specific areas?
Yeah. No, that's a phenomenal question. We
Uh,
do have specialties, because we all have various interests.
mhm.
For me, one of my greatest passions is couples.
Okay.
I love working with couples, but a
Mhm.
lot of therapists do not. They're like, it's too much work. And I can see why, because it's two clients in one session.
In one
You know,
session.
you're having to
Yeah.
account for these two different people.
Mhm.
But that's one. So some therapists, they specialize in trauma.
Mhm.
Some therapists specialize in adolescents or
Mhm.
even children. They do play therapy.
Mhm.
But I think in terms of the theories in counseling, like
Mhm.
cognitive behavioral therapy or solution focused therapy, then yeah, most counselors have that toolbox. But when it comes to specialties, yeah, some counselors have different training. They get different certificates in different areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been seeing you posting.
Oh.
I think Deidra deposit.
Yes, DJ deposits. Yeah.
Yeah. What are those?
Yes, so DJ deposits, they are basically things that I tell my clients.
Okay.
Yeah, things that I've told my clients, things that I tell them,
Mhm.
and basically things that I would tell my client if they were my
If they
clients.
were in your session.
Yes, if they were in my session.
Uh-huh.
So I really try to make the DJ deposits things that are truly from my heart. I don't want just good quotes.
Okay.
I want it to be things that are truly unique to me
Uh-huh.
as a therapist.
Okay.
And a lot of times I really do put the DJ deposits as things that I use in a session that week, or
Okay.
or in some past session. Yeah.
Okay. What are some deposits you shared this week
Oh,
or last week?
last week I think. Oh man, my last deposit was on
Attachments, I think.
well, that was one of the videos, but yes,
Okay.
actually the secure attachment style.
Okay.
So one of the deposits was what would you attempt to do if fear was not a factor?
Okay.
Yes, and that's actually what I asked one of my clients. I'm like, what would you attempt to do if you didn't if fear was not in the way, and then I did a deposit on I can't remember all the deposits now, but I think another one was on being secure in your attachment styles and um, choosing to extend yourself even if you naturally have a more detached attachment style or dismissive or avoidant. But I gave the challenge to say, hey, you know what? It's okay to step outside yourself, and so that you can be present with someone else.
Therapy can be expensive.
But not all therapy. Okay, I think too, depending on where you live, can definitely affect the cost of therapy.
Okay.
But I mean, it's expensive, but a lot of people have insurance. Some people use EAP. I made a whole video about how to pay for therapy.
Okay.
So EAP is the Employee Assistance Program.
Yes.
And a lot of jobs may give you like 5 free sessions, 8 free sessions. I've had clients who've had 10 free sessions.
Yeah.
And by like the 10th session, you're like, okay, Deidra, I'm good. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you had your 10 free sessions. So the insurance company works with your employer to provide those counseling sessions where there's no copay, or anything like that. We just bill the insurance, and the insurance has already partnered with that job to provide those sessions for free.
Okay. Are there any other resources? Say if somebody does not have insurance, they
Right.
don't have the money.
Right.
Are there any other resources they can tap into if they're not able to financially afford the counseling?
I think a lot of counselors, a lot of counselors, they do like a sliding scale. So some people, they may not be able to afford the whole thing, but the counselor can work with them to say, okay, well, can you do this? Maybe out of, let's say someone charges 100, can you do 60? Can you do something like that, or whatever they agree on?
Okay.
And that can sometimes help. And sometimes you recognize that the need is there, and sometimes as a counselor you just say, you know what, let's just do 3 sessions, and you don't charge, because I think therapy is not just about the money. It's about real. Okay, let me say, for me, let me speak for myself. For me, because it's not about the money. If I know that someone is truly in need, I'm like, man, let's just talk.
Yeah.
Let's put the titles aside. Let's just talk.
Let's just talk.
Yeah. So that happens too.
Because somebody may be in a very, very bad position and they need that right then.
Yes, absolutely. No, and you don't want to get to the point as a therapist where you're like, oh, you don't have my $100? Well, sorry, you just gonna have to suffer. And I'm sure there are other resources, community services, things like that. Social workers have a lot of agencies and partnerships that they can tap into. But yeah, I definitely will say, even if you don't have the money, find someone and ask them if they're willing to work with you.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Parting shot. Any words of wisdom?
Oh, I would say, I would use the last line that I use in my videos, and I would say, Guys, keep on growing. And as you grow, give yourself some grace.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Pastor Deidra-Ann Leiba-Masese. Thank you so much for allowing us to come into your space and sharing this great conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for
so
having me,
much.
Whisper. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Anchor Network.